Hello, I'm Paul Larson. Elizabeth Bluemle is one of the owners of a whimsical place in Shelburne, Vermont called the Flying Pig Bookstore. There she's surrounded by children's books of an extremely high quality, and some of those books she wrote herself. In this author visit, the bookseller and former school librarian talks about the animals and people who populate her popular works. You spend your days literally surrounded by children's books. What attracts you to them?
I think it's the joy in them. I think it's the playfulness of language. I think it's the audience. I love kids. I love to see them enjoying books. And there's no other medium that gives them such a window into other worlds that engages their brain as much. And I just love to see those light bulbs go off.
And you also enjoy them yourself even now.
I do. I grew up loving them. I loved them through college. It never occurred to me to write them until much later, but they were always a fundamental part of who I was, I think, as a child. And yeah, they've just been touchstones for me always.
Well, your recent book is called How Do You Waka Waka? What inspired this book?
I have a nephew who's now 12, but when he was 2, a little under 2, and he wasn't that verbally deft yet, he started asking all of us in the family, how do you waka waka? And we didn't know what he meant, and we said, how do we walk? And that wasn't it. And so finally his mom made up this very silly arm gesture to satisfy him, and he giggled, and he liked it. And then of course he had to ask all of us, and we had to do different movements. And I loved the mystery of that question. I loved that we didn't quite know what he meant. And I knew I wanted to use that as the basis for a book, but that wasn't enough. It was a seed, but it wasn't a story. So I filed it away, and then a few years later, I was thinking about the block parties in New York City that I loved. And I loved the way it brought strangers together and neighbors together for a celebration, where everybody was so different, but there was a sense of community. And I don't know, just that, it was like the Reese's peanut butter cup, you know, the chocolate and peanut butter. Those two ideas came together in a really nice way.
Well, will you read some of the book for us?
Sure. So it starts with a little boy out gathering his friends and neighbors for a surprise. We don't know yet what it is, but he asks them all how they waka waka. How do you waka waka? I waka waka like a fish flop on a docker, flip a flopper off the docker, put me back in water water. Hey, let's waka waka, shimmy shake and shaka shaka. Time to get a move on in your shiny shoes and socka socka. Everybody waka in their own crazy way. Won't you waka with me on this fine old sunny day? And then they gather, and the surprise turns out to be a big block party with street vendors and balloons and dogs and grandparents, and yet individuality is celebrated with nobody wakas in the same waka way. It's a waka waka party each and every waka day. We all gonna rocka, cakewalk till we droppa. Yeah, you gotta waka. It was a fun book to write.
How important is rhythm in your writing? Because that has a marvelous rhythm.
I love rhythm, and my second book that I wrote is also a rhythmic book, and I almost hear it as a song. So there usually is a beat underneath what I'm writing, even if it's prose. There is always a rhythm to it.
Now, your other 2 books have a dog theme.
Yes, they do.
Are you a dog lover?
I am a dog lover. I have 2 dogs. I don't have kids, so I think that a lot of the ideas I might have gotten from my own kids come from my dogs. They're very silly, and they remind me of people, and they're very toddler-esque in some ways.
Well, how do you find your illustrators?
Well, the publisher likes to do that. I think that's one of the big misconceptions about picture book writing, is that you're responsible for coming up with the artwork. And the happy news for us non-illustrators is that we don't have to do that. The publisher has an art department. The editorial committee sits down with the art department, and they talk about the tone of the book and the mood of the book, and they come up with a list of names. Candlewick Press, who's my publisher, is wonderful because they give me that list of names and say, how do you feel about these? So I get a lot of say in that, which is not always the case at a publishing house. So yeah, I feel lucky that way.
Well, 2 of them are illustrated by Randy Cecil. Do you think you would ever collaborate deliberately with him?
Yes, I mean, How Do You Waka Waka was a deliberate collaboration with him, and his style and mine go together well.
Well, you were saying that often it's the publisher who chooses the illustrator, but aren't some children's books collaborations between the author and the illustrator where the pictures and the words sort of inform each other?
A good picture book should have that regardless of how it's created. A true picture book is where the art and text are interdependent on one another, and they can't really stand alone without each other. But it's hard to break into the business as an artist-author team if you're not one person who can do both. Because if you're a debut artist, it's hard to break into that field. However, if you are a professional artist and you can do fantastic work, I think it's an advantage to be collaborating that closely ahead of the process.
You were talking about it's hard to break into the field. A lot of people say it's hard to break into the field of writing children's books. Would you agree with that?
It is. They get thousands and thousands of manuscripts. Every publisher does. And they range from grandparents who want to tell a special story to a grandchild that may not have resonance for a nation full of kids, to some just undiscovered gems. But they have to find those, and that's time consuming. I think that a really fine story will find, I have to believe it's like cream, it will rise to the top and somehow find its way into that marketplace.
How important is humor in your books?
Very, very important. There has to be humor. For me to connect to almost anything, I see the funny side of it, I guess. And I love delighting kids. I love to make them giggle. I love to make them, I think humor inspires kids to come up with their own fun ideas. They're ready to laugh. They want to be delighted and discover new things. So I guess I can't imagine writing something without any humor.
How's your rapport with the editor of the books?
She's great. You know, we have a very open dialogue about things. Sometimes we will disagree about a line or a word or punctuation. I mean, we've had arguments over commas before, and it's wonderful because you get, you know, again, you get challenged. You see your work in a new way.
What's something major that you disagreed on?
In My Father the Dog, there's a page that says he growls when you startle him out of a nap. This is comparing the dad to the dog. And I had a subsequent line that said when he's really mad, he barks, which I thought was very funny. And I thought every kid would be able to relate to that. My editor felt it was a little harsh, especially for the younger readers of the book. And we went back and forth on it. And then she came back with, the entire editorial committee feels that it's too harsh. And at that point I thought, well, if everybody thinks it's too harsh, then that's fine. So I went with her on that edit.
So ultimately, when you look at the book now, what do you think of the fact that a sentence you wanted in there is not in there?
I miss that sentence, and sometimes when I'm reading to kids, I will sneak it in there. And it's actually a great opportunity to talk about revision. I do a lot of work in schools with kids about revision, and so it's a great opportunity to talk about why you make changes, why you don't make changes, and how to figure out where to draw the line and not, where you're being true to the story the way you feel it, and where you're just stubbornly holding on to something that you may like that isn't working for the story. So it's good for them to know, I think, that a published author also has those questions. It's not so clear-cut, even to us.
So you go to schools and you do presentations with kids. How do you like reaching kids? Why is that audience so important to you, especially when you're writing?
I think because they're so immediate, and you know how they feel about something. There's no baloney with kids. If it's funny, they laugh. If it's not funny, they don't. If they're restless, you know you're dragging a little. I mean, it's just an immediate feedback, and they are full of great ideas. They are full of enthusiasm. They're funny. They're just, and they're so smart. Kids are even kindergarten kids will say things that just astonish me. So I loved it. I would never want to lose touch with the kids I'm writing for.
Author Visits is a production of Mountain Lake PBS. For more information about the authors and their books, it's right here at the Author Visits section of our website at mountainlake.org.